Okay.
Hey everybody! Oh, I was gonna do this first. Well, no one's on, so they'll see. Here we are for our costumed appraisal buddy read of. It's not gonna stay on. That's fine. It was just the effort I wanted to make because last time we were here with Berna's Bookish Adventures, we were talking about Austenland, and I had a bonnet. So this time I thought I'd be a
Yes.
little wool plaid, and since we're talking about
Yes.
Cranford, which is like 50 years later. So welcome everybody to our Victober Buddy Read. Berna, you want to say hello and I don't know,
Hello.
sum up your
Hello.
channel? Yeah.
I actually wanted to find something Victorian, but the only thing that I could find was this mug with the design. Cards.
Pretty.
Yes, Victorian cards. Yeah.
Cute.
That was the only thing I could find, unfortunately. But I tried to. But I looked at my clothes and there was nothing that fitted. So that was good. Hi.
Hi,
Merhaba.
Merhaba. Yeah, so yeah, costume closets and whatnot. Notwithstanding, we're here to talk about the book that we read at about the same time. We didn't do much like discussion of it, so this is all our discussion in public view. I'm sure many people who know about Victober, which is reading Victorian literature for October, have tried and loved Cranford before. It's by Elizabeth Gaskell. Oh, I don't even know when it was written. Let's see. 1853.
1850s, yes. Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah. And so it's a popular book. It's maybe not as well known as the Bronte sisters books, but Elizabeth Gaskell is I think, pretty popular writer. So if you're going for the popular prompt, that would work.
Yes.
And yeah, I hadn't read it before. I'd seen the miniseries, so a lot of the things I read were familiar. But Berna had a different reading experience. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you first tried?
Yeah, I first tried Cranford about 10 years ago, actually. When after I read North and South, and I really did like North and South, and I loved the romance between the two characters. Yeah, of course. And I immediately tried Cranford because I was expecting a big romance in a small town. There were some romantic aspects of the book, but unfortunately, it was a bit disappointing for me. And at the time, I wasn't really into short story format, although this is not a short story book. I had trouble concentrating on the shorter works. So it was a bit harder for me to connect with the characters. So and I was a bit I had a bit lower rating system at that time. I was a bit I don't know what's happening, and I actually gave it 2 stars when I first read it. But yeah,
what would you give it now? So what would you give it now?
I gave it 4 stars. So it doubled. 8 out of 10.
What did I give it? I gave it 4.5, so I gave it 9 out of 10. So there you go. Okay.
Because this time I watched many of the booktubers that I really like said that they really do like this book, and it's a wonderful experience, Victorian experience. And I wanted to give it a reread. Actually, I made a video about that one, the books that I want to reread, and I think this was in the second place. And we talked about buddy reading it for October. So here we are, and in this time, I really did like the book because I had different expectations, not romance, but a book about really Victorian society, and that's what I got.
Did you think it was very realistic?
Oh, I can't be sure. because
I mean, none of us can time travel, but
yeah, I can't be sure because although I have lived in UK because I didn't live at that time. But I really liked the idea of a woman in charge in a small town, I have to admit. And it was great to have so many characters, women characters, who are actually very strong.
that's true. That would be
But
great to turn into a play for the stage, actually, because usually you have lots of plays that are performed that don't have strong women parts, just like movies. So that would be interesting.
and also,
Go ahead.
and I'm sorry, but I really love your idea, and also we would have a chance to see a very experienced, wonderful woman performance on the stage, like in the TV show. The actresses there are fantastic. I mean, so
yeah, mature women actresses, roles for mature women. Like,
yes,
love that. So yeah. Okay, so just to give a little bit of background and context for people who don't know anything about Cranford and like why we're talking about whether it's realistic or not. It's about a rural town near a large industrial town in, I think Manchester is the model for the large industrial town, which is the Midlands, where Gaskell lived, and in the 1850s thereabouts. She has a small circle of women who are sort of the queen bees of this small town, and explains away the absence of men by saying that they were either widows or unmarried spinsters, or there just wasn't much action in this town. And so the fact that there weren't men of action, of industry there, meant that the women that she's examining were sort of like a side show, I feel like. So I feel like it's a realistic portrayal, but her framing is for the purpose of the story. Meaning, like, there were probably plenty of older women who had this sort of attitude towards life, but the framing for her book, that this is all that's going on, is probably just the picture that she wanted to paint. And so she just, grayed out everything behind those women, And I was like, that's totally valid choice. Yeah.
yeah, I really like that part of it.
Yeah. So I've seen the miniseries as well. One of the big draws is Judi Dench is the character of Matilda Jenkins, a younger sister who is rather old herself, but struggling to maintain gentility or respectability in a place where, as we said, there's not much action, so there's not much money, and everyone's sort of limping along trying to cover the fact that they're poor. And I've popped something into the chat. If anyone follows Spinster's Library, which is Claudia, she just put up a great review, and I watched that to get her some of her thoughts, and so like some of the points that she was talking about.
Yes, I actually watched it in preparation for this video just 2 hours ago, so I know I know the video.
Perfect. Yeah.
I mean, it's a wonderful evaluation. I loved it.
Mm-hmm. She talks about the fact that this was originally in serial form, like a lot of Dickens' work. So it was, fed out a little bit at a time in a magazine to entertain people, which makes sense because, as you said, they're not short stories, but they're like a linked collection of stories in the same world. Kind of like how you would write sci-fi these days, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. And she also mentioned that it was like a Victorian soap opera, which I really liked the how she said it, because it's actually like that, because there are characters that we follow, and also their stories somehow connect, and there are comedic scenes and also tragic scenes. I mean, she of course said it much articulate than I did, but that I really liked how she compared that one. And sometimes I watch soap operas, not all the time. So it's a very good comparison, I think.
There's even people who come back from the dead.
Yes.
So if you're,
Yes.
if
So
you're not turned off by some of those tropes, like there's some things that happen for the purpose of sentimentality, I feel like, that we just sort of go, sure, why not? Why not? Let's
yeah,
throw it in there. Why not? Yeah.
yeah, and the illusionist. I
Yeah.
mean, who dressed like a Turk, which was a bit surprising because I didn't remember that
Mm.
actually. So it was really interesting, some Orientalist themes, I think, which makes it attractive to the reader at that time, I think, because,
Mm-hmm.
Turkish people, sultans, and the Ottoman Empire, and
Mm-hmm.
how he dressed fancifully, like the sultans did at that time. So I think it was very interesting in that sense as well, because it was entertaining, and also had this comparison with East and West, which
Mm-hmm.
was something that I particularly liked when I evaluated my education system. Actually,
Mm.
uh,
Okay.
uh, it was interesting how she compared Eastern values and Western values. It was very particularly interesting in that sense
Huh.
for me.
Okay. I think it goes into it a little bit when she's talking about, um, oh, do I have, hello, Mr. Flanders. Thanks for joining.
Hello.
I have this. Okay. So if you haven't read Cranford,
Yes.
there's a part where she talks about the brother in India, and
Mm-hmm.
like she's talking about how he went up the ranks or what his life was like and the tales he would tell. Is that what you mean? Because I don't know if the magician who comes to town is actually Turkish. I don't know.
No, no,
No,
he is
he's
not.
just putting on a show, right?
Yeah, he's putting on a show, and he's using the mystic views
Mm-hmm.
about the illusion, like he's doing some sort of magic system. That was what I was trying to say, because in the Eastern culture we have this belief that many things mystic things can happen. Uh, Not because of religion, actually. Religion is also a big part of it, but we have this very mystic things, like the because you have been to Turkey, Nazar. We have this, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's actually an Eastern thing, and an Eastern culture. That's what I was trying to say. And Miss Paul actually, because she was so Western, she did not want to believe that it was magic, and it wasn't magic actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like Miss Paul because uh, I was trying to say, because of my education, because I was mainly educated in the Western system,
Mm-hmm.
in the American college actually. So my rationality and also my Turkish traits coincides, and it was really interesting how Miss Paul became the
A
sound
symbol.
of reason, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I identified with her, especially at that part.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so what I'm taking from what you're saying is that beyond an actual description of Oriental culture or Oriental impressions that the Victorians would have, it was setting up a Western and an Eastern symbol system and basically coding them as like
Mm-hmm.
trustworthy and cloaked in mystery, and Miss Pole is the Western. That's not a very ringing endorsement for Miss Pole, because in other parts of the book she's very like a fuss budget, like fussy
Yeah,
and
I
worried.
agree.
And, yeah,
That
interesting.
was the only part that I felt like she was the character that I felt similar to. But other than that, I mean, it's like a soap opera in that sense as well. In soap operas, the characters sometimes do act differently. So she acted differently in some parts, and acted differently in the other parts. And also Miss Matilda, although she is very kind and mature, sometimes she acts very unreasonably. So I liked how realistic actually, because as humans we are all also like that. So it was good. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, because you would say from a writing point of view maybe that a character needs to be consistent, but in real life it's kind of like, well, people aren't consistent, so
Unfortunately.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not.
Maalesef. Okay, so here's a quote
Yeah,
I
maalesef.
have. Here's a quote I have that I thought would be interesting that comes into your point there about beliefs or sort of mysticism. It's when should I put the spoiler thing up again? Maybe. Okay, it's when Maddie is alone in the house and she allows her servant to have a follower, to have a boyfriend, basically, because she's lost her own chance at love and realizes that, you know, time is too short and whatever. And so when she says, it's okay if you want to have a follower, the servant goes, oh, yes, I've got one right and ready to go. And then it says, though Miss Mattie was startled, she submitted to fate and love. And fate and love are capitalized. And I thought, okay, that's an interesting characterizations, because it's like reordering her own understanding of how the world works and going, well, okay, I guess this is right for them, and I'm not going to stand in the way, even though she's used to standing in the way, because that's what Western women do, is say no, this far and no further. Like, I thought that was a very good turning point. Did that impress you at all, that point? Or
Yeah, I found it interesting as well, because as you said, because she had been so strictly raised and taught not to show her feelings. I mean, that's why I think she re-evaluated what she did, and she did not want to her mate. Is it her
Martha?
mate? Yeah, Martha. To miss that chance as well, but she still clashes with the decisions that she makes, because she wants to protect Martha actually.
Yeah.
So that's her. That's I mean that kind of point of view is really hard to get over, even if you make a decision. I mean, I actually identified in that sense as well, because I was raised in a very educated family, Western education, and we were also taught not to show extreme emotions in our family, in contrast to many of the Turkish families. So it was interesting how I I looked at myself, and maybe I did the same thing. I don't know. Maybe I didn't do. I couldn't really be sure. So not just for love, but for other emotions as well. I don't like to show my emotions in public very much. It still didn't change.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder, yeah, I didn't ask myself the question of who with whom I identified the most, although that was part of someone else's discussion questions. But I mean, in previous phases of my life, I would say definitely Miss Jenkins, Deborah, who instead of Deborah, she went by Deborah, because that's the way you pronounce it in the Bible. Just like knowing everything and telling people what the right thing was to do. But I hope I've moved past that.
We all have those faces. I know that.
Right. Who else did I say that I really liked? I actually remember thinking about this and writing it down now, and I don't know where it is. So let me get back to my point from Claudia's video. What did you think was a strength of the novel from a writing point of view? Like when you look at the different elements and analyze plot, characters, setting, what popped out that seemed really original or unique?
First of all, I think it was certainly a character book, although they were not consistent, as we mentioned before. They had very believable and very realistic characters most of the time. And also,
Cow? I'm going to say no on the cow.
yeah. Yeah,
I think that's a little fantasy.
Yes, it was a bit a stretch. Yeah, I agree. And I also mentioned that in our private chats as well. It was interesting how the narrator did not have a name until she had an effect on the plot. Before she was named as Mary Smith, she did not have anything to do with the plot. She was just an observer. But in the later parts of the book, maybe it's spoiler. I don't know. I do not want to say it, but
I'll put it up just in case.
Okay. When her father actively was involved in the banking incident, and then she tried to find the brother, she was actively participating in the plot. Then she first got a name, Mary, and then she got a surname, Smith. I think it was very clever, and I found it very interesting in that sense.
Right. It could have been adapting to circumstances, because if it's in serial installments in a newspaper or something, you hook people, first of all, with the action and like the drama, and then when they start to know the characters, you introduce new things and bring back old characters and sort of like twist the plot, and you can develop it when you've already got an audience, which is hopefully what all writers want to do, right?
Yes, yeah. Of course.
I was really struck by the dialogue. There's another place that nope, not that one. Another place that I turned down a corner. I think it's the last one, just for a sample of the dialogue. Actually, this isn't in the story. So I have this version, Oxford Classics, World Classics, and it has a piece in the back that's like related stories that were in a similar style, maybe in the same publication, but not part of Cranford or didn't get published with them. And it's the dialogue for me that really shines with like very careful wit, because it's like almost silly, but then you think it's believable with the characters. And let's see. In my days, said she, when we wrote to our fathers and mothers, we began, honored sir or honored madam. None of your dear mammas or dear papas would have been permitted. And we ruled off our margin before beginning our letters, instead of cramming writing into every corner of the paper. And when we ended our letters, we asked our parents' blessing if we were writing to them. And if we wrote to a friend, we were content to remain your affectionate friend, instead of hunting up some newfangled expression such as you're attached, you're loving, etc. Fanny, my dear, I got a letter today signed yours cordially, like a dram shop, which I thought was hilarious. So I had to put that out there, because cordial is something that's used. It's like a medicinal alcohol concoction. And so I never thought of that. There's a connection. And then someone would think it was vulgar because it sounded like you were in a dram shop, like somewhere you would walk in for alcohol. And I just thought that was really funny.
Drinking buddies.
Yeah.
Like drinking buddies. Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that about cordial. So it's always good to know about different things. And also there was a quote which I think Miss Deborah said in the beginning of the book. I wrote it down, but like you, I forgot.
It's somewhere.
It is. Yeah, but it was like feeling too much gives you indigestion, something like that. It was hilarious. I loved it. I mean, everyone needs a character like her. Too bad she died early.
She dies early in the book. Yeah, I think in the miniseries, because she was such an accomplished actress for that character role, I think they put her into more of it, but that was a solid choice for me. Yeah. Did you ever read Anne of Green Gables? Any of that?
Yes, I did. I did.
They talked about I think they talk about it as a cordial, the thing that Diana Barry gets drunk on accidentally. The reason for the whole like rift in their friendship and that the parents getting angry. I think that's a cordial. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. So yeah.
Cordial is a sweet fruit flavored drink like lime cordial. And I can't remember what the one is in Anne of Green Gables. It's raspberry cordial that she gives to Diana. I can't remember. But anyway.
Yeah, I remember the incident, but I can't remember the drink actually. Yeah.
Barrett was in here earlier. Like button. Yes, thank you. He's reminding me in all my videos. Like and subscribe and comment below. That's much appreciated. What else that I want to touch on? So one of the very early things which really sets the tone. Oh, I was going to ask about tone. I'll get to that next. Is page 15. So early on, and the line is things that many would despise, and actions which it seemed scarcely worthwhile to perform, were all attended to in Cranford. And I think that is like, it's a little bit about what Claudia was talking about in terms of not having money and being very focused on the respectability of your actions. But it's also, I think, part of Gaskell's commentary on the time before industrialization, like the town that time forgot, is exhibited in the fact that they pay attention to small things. They talk about poetry. They write things a certain way. They fold papers for each other as favors. Like all these little things that we don't do now, or, you know, they didn't even do then. And she points that out as something that they were very careful to preserve and continue. What did you think about that? Was that important, or?
I think it was interesting because even though they lost their wealth, they want to keep the traditions, the little details that they had, so that they would not feel the loss so much. Maybe it was interesting, especially in the first chapters. Like you said, maybe it was serialized, then it got into something different themes, but especially in the first 2 or 3 chapters, the whole theme was all about this fact, how they. I think there was a section which I found very interesting. They didn't have the time. They didn't have the money to rent a carriage. I'm not really sure about the right term, but the horse carriage. But they never said that they didn't have the money. They just wanted fresh air and exercise.
Right, they wanted to walk. Yeah.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
Yeah, that sort of thing in modern context, that sort of thing hits me as like very prideful, like very, well, I can't tell the truth because it's a damage to my pride, which seems very silly. So one of the Barrett's doing double duty here. He's on Worldwide as well as trying to like tap in and say hello to people. So I appreciate it. So like as an example, the dresses were too expensive to replace. So they stayed with 20-year-old fashions if you were an old spinster. And that they just like spend the money on the cap. And I don't have a cap. I had the bonnet for Austin, but I don't have caps. They're so unflattering. So I'm not into that. But in the time, you know, that was a less expensive accessory that you could invest in, and you know, talk to your friends about and fuss about and decorate yourself and that sort of thing. I wonder, my mind goes to the fact that often when you're trying to preserve a tradition that really has no purpose, but it's part of a culture, what's the difference between something that gets twisted into backwards sort of nostalgia is not the right word. There's a more specific word, but like I think of the Confederacy in the US and like people looking back to a time and a lifestyle that has certain memories for them. But if you keep it sort of preserved in a corner without updating it or examining it, like that can fester, it can turn bitter, it can stand for something that the greater culture looks down on after a while. And so I feel like, what is it that we like in Cranford that these women are preserving, or is it just because it's something cute and picturesque and not harming anyone that we like it, as opposed to feeling it's dangerous? Does that make sense to anyone? Am I like mixing up?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it's the second one for me, because I mean, I do not agree with what they're doing, because they're actually repressing their feelings, which is not very healthy in any sense. But because it is so different and unique for us, and even for that time, I think I understand that.
Yeah.
We find it interesting and very enjoyable to read, because it had this wonderful wit, which is not ha-ha, but it makes me smile. I like that wit much better than laugh out loud, anyway, in books. So I think it's the second one for me, but it could be the other one for.
Well, okay, so here's a modern like maybe equivalent. So if you, I don't know if you've seen videos of people who pretend to live in another era, like they buy things and they furnish their house, and they dress a certain way, and they have like a certain aesthetic, shall we say, and like they're living in the 19th century, or they're living in 1920s or 1950s. Those videos pop up on YouTube, and I'm always like, that's so cute, but like, what's wrong with you?
I mean, I would never want to live on those times. I know that for sure. But yes, I think it's a very different approach to life. I don't know. I've always been very content with the time that I'm living. I actually love technology, so I'm very grateful for the technology that we can do this in different continents, actually.
Right.
So what can I say? But that's their choice. But I think that's not very for me as well.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, living, pretending to be living at that time. It could be interesting for only 2 hours for me.
Right. Like, I appreciate the museum aspects of it, and the knowledge and the curiosity to research those subjects and know those crafts and details. I mean, especially people who are doing costuming. But the weirdness of it for me is that it's like they're turning their back on the modern conversation. And so I don't think that's what Cranford is doing. Obviously, the intent of the author in portraying a society that's 20 years behind, and this is why, because of genteel poverty reasons, is not the same. But I just kind of, it's one of those interesting things of people's life choices, and I just feel okay to comment on them, I guess.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I watch those videos because they're interesting for sure.
Right.
So I think it's the same idea, like you said. Maybe not in that extreme, but it was interesting. I'm saying interesting so many times. I know that.
It's okay. Okay, so what about the mood or the tone? So one of the things I mentioned right before we went live was that I was trying to think of other books that were like this, or maybe if you like Cranford, you would also like this. The most powerful impression I get from the book is the tone and the mood, the nostalgia, the wit, the sort of quietness, and I can't think of anything that approximates that. So I was wondering if anyone here has like thoughts, or like, what is the mood of the book as you saw it?
Well, I do not have a very similar book actually, but coincidentally, I read a nonfiction book which was like that. about the times in my city, in which an author described the people living in a very I don't know. It's not the town, but to about 4 or 5 districts, which was the center at that time. I'm talking about 1990, at the beginning of 20th century,
Okay.
right before the Independence War, but
Okay.
the last years of Ottoman Empire.
Okay.
And he was describing all of the people who were a bit involved in the district in a very narrative way. I mean, it was non-fiction, but I think he exaggerated a bit.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I got the feeling that he was exaggerating.
Okay.
But it was like little anecdotes like this one, and it followed. I mean, our narrator, actually a very famous author in Turkey at that time, was describing those people in those districts as a non-active participant most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt a bit similar, but not the same.
Interesting.
I wish it had been translated to English, but it was called İzmir Hikayeleri, Stories of Izmir.
Oh, you just reviewed that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But after I read Cranford, I could somehow see the similarities.
Interesting.
It's not the same, but it was interesting in that sense. But there in Cranford, we mostly follow Miss Mattie and Mary Smith, and Miss Paul. But at that book, only the narrator was the same. So he talked about
go into different houses each time, just to sort of like exhibit different situations.
Yeah.
Okay.
But sometimes the characters coincided, but not all the time.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, the parallels are there, because if it was the last years of the Ottoman Empire before the World War and Ataturk changed and modernism and everything, it feels like that is more immediate or more powerful or more obvious maybe than in Gaskell's writing, because she's talking about the train coming to town. No, that's the miniseries. Sorry. The train comes to town in the miniseries and it's a fight. And she talks about the bank. Excuse me. Bank failure. So I think we know that there's like a huge wave of industrialization that's going to overturn this little backyard society, but I don't know that we feel the effects of it too much.
Yes, I mean, we don't do that. But in this book, it was only focusing on the years before the revolution. But because he's writing it at a later age, he sometimes makes these comparisons. He says that Izmir became much more modern after the revolution, but the society, of course, changed because of some refugee exchange at that time. Actually, my grandfather came at that refugee exchange to Izmir. So,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, we came from Greek islands actually. So,
oh, neat.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Did you have a more? Does it talk about that in the book, the Izmir book that you read, or that was
it just touches upon it because there's a strong emphasis on the non-religious, non-Muslim people, and he says that They are not living anymore as a community there. Only few people stayed in Izmir after the refugee exchange. So it was. It only touches a bit because he's writing at a later age.
Got it. Interesting. I don't know that there's much discussion of religion or new people in the neighborhood, except for Mr. Brown, the Browns at the very beginning.
Yeah. And I found it very hilarious that as a booktuber and as a book lover, their main dispute was about a book. But it was mostly about religion. I know that. I think it's a religious text, this Dr. Johnson book. Is it a moral thing? I can't be sure.
Samuel Johnson was the person who wrote the dictionary, the first dictionary, but also like tracts about philosophy, and I think he just spouts off stuff because he thinks he's the smartest guy in the world. That's the impression. I'm not a fan particularly. I haven't like delved into his work too much.
Yeah.
He's a huge British great man kind of person. So
because he was also mentioned in Moonstone, the book that I was reading with Cranford, and a very religious character in the book.
Okay.
Actually adores Dr. Johnson.
Okay.
So
maybe, yeah. Maybe.
So maybe
I don't know.
He's more old-fashioned. I can't be sure. Yeah.
He's very old-fashioned because he's, I think, like in the 18th century is when most of his writing is like 1760s to 1800s. So he's like 2 generations before what Cranford was reading. Very old school.
So it makes sense that that's a character because you haven't read the book. I will not say anything. That character likes Dr. Johnson. Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's so funny that the 2 battling books are Johnson and Dickens, because like Dickens, I think, was the owner of the newspaper where the Cranford tales were published, and I thought that's sucking up to the boss a little bit.
Because Mr. Brown was such a nice guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And he was. Would it be spoiler because it happens in the 2nd chapter? But maybe we should not.
Sure.
Yeah. It was really interesting that he was reading Dickens's book when just before the accident happened, because he was so much invested in the book. And then he became the big hero who saved the child, a tragic death, but really heroic death. I mean,
very melodramatic. It's funny because Jim and I were both talking about getting so caught up in Leah Angstman's book that we both read in advance of its publication. We both got so caught up that I missed a Zoom meeting and he missed his bus stop. And so it's like, never mind about this guy in the 1850s who's so caught up in Dickens that he, misses the train whistle or whatever it is and is tragically killed. So
unfortunately.
We can relate as booktubers, everyone. With a good book.
Yeah. I mean, I did miss my stop once too, but I don't remember which book it was. It was probably one of the mysteries. So
The Hunt.
I don't.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one stop, so I just went back. So okay.
You just decided you'd like some fresh air, wouldn't you?
Of course.
Yeah. That's fun. That's fun. I think that's what notes I had. Oh, okay. Hey, my dad's listening. Look at that. He looked up Samuel Johnson.
Wow.
Died in 1984. So even 20 years earlier than I had remembered. I'm 20 years off. Thank you. Thank you, Dad.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yay. Let's see. Do I have any other notes? Compare with the miniseries. So the miniseries, the TV show, actually puts a lot more tales. Like I remember someone who's being promoted from, gardener into a household, and there's a lot more detailed things that are period appropriate, I would say, but not in the Cranford book at all, which was fine. They spend a lot more time. I feel like it's a lot more paced in the book. It just like click, click, click, click, all this plot elements.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely agree because I remember watching the TV series after reading the book for the first time, and I will watch it again this time, but I didn't have time because I was busy at work. I remember liking the miniseries much more because it was much more fast-paced. But as I've said before, I matured as a reader. For me, I think I matured because I'm more open to different styles like short stories, anecdotes, and memories. So I remember it being more fast-paced, but I will definitely watch the miniseries as well.
Was it more fast-paced? I think so. I have a slight disagreement because when you think of the story arc of the railroad and the Browns, I feel like that took much longer in the miniseries. Whereas, like you said, it's in the second chapter, and it's just one of many little episodes. But the miniseries seemed to pick up some of the more I think the things that would resonate with modern audiences more and make them a bigger deal, but slow it down and like make the details more obvious, maybe. So I don't know.
Yes. But but I found it more exciting. That maybe that's what I was trying to say. More fast paced. But it was 10 years ago, so I might misremember it.
Yeah.
I need to rewatch it. For sure.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one to rewatch.
Yeah, I love Judi Dench, so
I know she's so good. And the other Dame on the list that's not in the miniseries, but I'm watching Downton Abbey these days, an episode here or there, because I never watched it when it came out. I just watched the first couple episodes, and actually I got it mixed up in my head with a movie that was about the same time, and I didn't like it. And so anyway, I stopped watching it, but now I'm like on season 3, I think, and it's very interesting. That's Dame Maggie Smith, and she's in that, and she is quite the personality. Have you watched that one?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I did not need to say of course, but because I'm a big fan of Maggie Smith, I watched. I started watching because of Maggie Smith, but then I was really invested in all of the characters, especially in the first 3 seasons. The other seasons were really good as well, but in the first 3 seasons, the story was shining. So I think you're in for a treat because Maggie Smith shines in every season. So
she's so good. She's so good.
Yeah.
Whether it's Harry Potter or Downton Abbey, she's just up to any role.
I definitely agree with you. She has one of the best one-liners, and I was joking when I was watching the series for the first time, simultaneously, because I watched the first 2 seasons and then watched it as it aired.
Okay.
And I was joking with my ex at that time that I want to be Maggie Smith, not Maggie Smith, Lady Violet. when I grow old, yeah. That was my ambition. But
there you go.
Maybe I will be. I don't know.
That reminds me of the person who I identified with the most. So the person who I thought was like, I don't know if the righteous is the right word, but like the person that I was like, no, she deserves to win is Lady Glenmire.
Yes.
You know this character? So for those of you who haven't read Cranford yet, there's like the little coterie of older ladies who are widow, spinster, and they have their like circle, and they're the people who are looked up to in town. But then someone comes towards the end of the story who is a relative, and she creates all this drama, even without like herself causing it, just because she has a title and like she upsets the social order of things and whatnot. But then, since you don't know, I'll just be able to say she marries beneath her, as some considers someone who's beneath her, and loses the title. But she's such a good person, she wins everyone back. And I felt like she was the person that I was rooting for by the end. She's an outsider, but then she has like the heart of gold at the end. So I thought I liked her story, and that was put in there at the end. I liked it.
Yeah, that story was really good. I definitely agree. And how she abandoned her title, even though she didn't have to. And it was really ironic that the other ones who were a bit jealous of her really despised the fact that she abandoned her title. So I found it really witty and a very good point for the society at that time.
It's so funny. Yeah, they were looking down on someone, especially because his name was Hawkins, and it's just like a vulgar name. And I'm like, you don't have a choice in your name, so there's really not much you can do about it. That's very unfair, but yeah.
Yeah.
Small town.
And she married a doctor. Yeah, and she married a doctor, not not some. I don't know.
Right.
I do not mean to piss anybody off, but she married a doctor. Well, it was
modern
very
values. Yeah, modern values versus Victorian values.
I don't know. Maybe my family has lots of doctors. I might be biased because of that, but I don't know.
There you go. I don't think I have any other notes on Cranford. As you can see, it's a pretty small volume.
Yes.
This is the only Victober read that I've read so far. You have done a very good job, but I still have 3 to go. And they're still doable in a week, I guess.
But I think you can do them. Yeah. I definitely agree. Yes. I read The Moonstone, as I've said before. And I liked it a bit better than this book, but I'm sorry. But I finished my Victober reading because I need to finish other books on my TBR. Yes. And I also listened to a short story by Robert Louis Stevenson. The ending was really good. The story was very short. So it's very doable for anyone who wants to put a short story on Victober TBR, Victober reads.
Yeah.
The Body Snatcher. It was sort of like a horror type, but not in modern story. So it was good.
That's good. Sounds good. I've got a couple other reads, and then the Victober. I've been naughty, and I've been like diving into the ones that I said I was going to save for nonfiction November, the letterpress, because it's research related, and the Out to Work, which is about women working in America in the 19th and 20th centuries. And like I've been dipping into those, looking for things in the index, which is definitely cheating, but whatever. It's all fun, all fun and games.
I think it's definitely okay to read early. So I've done that as well. I mean, I started Moonstone a bit earlier. So
yeah. Oh, good. Okay, good. I feel less alone. Right. There's no big ruler in the sky that's gonna come smack you on the hands.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm a big follower of TBR, but even I agree that it's not a rule to read nonfiction in November or Victorian books in October. Right. I keep saying Victober to October, so
we're like, what is wrong? Yeah.
Fortunately, not many people speak English, so yeah.
There you go. It's just in your head. It's just when you talk to booktubers.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Well, excellent. I'm so happy we did this buddy read together. I really enjoyed reading Cranford.
Me too. As a reread, it was very, very fulfilling, and to read it and to sort of discuss it with you, and of course this live show. It was very, very good. Thank you.
Very fun. So Berna gives it a 4. I give it a 4.5. It's a short read. It's very autumnal. It's very nostalgic, and countryside and seasons and cute little subplots. So I think we'd both recommend this book to anyone who wants a quick Victober read or a comforting fall into winter read. So enjoy. thanks for joining us today. I think unless there are any
Thank
final
you.
thoughts or questions, we're good to sign off and say have a lovely weekend, everybody.
Okay. Bye.